Have some shocking crypto news to discuss tonight, as multiple big stories are coming out across the crypto world, including some that could entirely change the way we look at cryptocurrency forever. Now let's get into this first story here, which is absolutely surprising a lot of people. Ukraine is now the second in the world for crypto use. Some metrics actually have it at number 1 in the entire world in terms of using crypto. And what we're hearing from recent reports is that people in Ukraine right now are actually being able to save their own lives because of having access to crypto, whereas they otherwise may not be able to buy things like food. They may not be able to buy things that they would otherwise be able to in a normal system of running things. With Russia taking over certain parts of Ukraine fully, they are now in a very terrible situation, and so it's important to take a look at that. Now, I will say Ukraine's not perfect. Ukraine has done decent and terrible things just like any other country, but at the same time, I don't think it makes sense to actually go and invade a country, especially because it seems like some of the motivations for this were absolutely selfish. And so we'll go ahead and move on past that. Here's the important news regarding cryptocurrency. 180 million users globally and over 18,000 businesses across the world are now using a cryptocurrency. 180 million people. That is more than the population of Russia, but there's another way to look at this. Yes, that's a heck of a lot of people, but when you compare it to this, the world population of 7.753 billion compared to like 180 million people around this population of Russia, 35 million more than that, you start to realize how big the room for growth is for cryptocurrency right now. Absolutely massive, and even of those 180 million or so people currently using it, the amount that they hold is significantly smaller than it likely will be in the future. So there's so many interesting things to think about here, and so many different ways to look at it. As everyone comes into live, you're welcome to take a second to press the like button. We have some big news to talk about today, and we absolutely will be doing just that. Indeed. Let me go ahead and take a second. So we have a bunch of chats coming in right now. Let me see if I can see in the pop out as well. There we go. Look at that. We got the pop out chat now, and so you can see what people are saying right there. I guess I'll put that behind me, should I? Yeah, we'll put it right there. So then now we can actually have the comments visible on screen. Pretty cool right there as we continue to talk about what's happening in the world of cryptocurrency. 18,000 businesses, that's not too bad as well, but that number will go up also. Let's go and take a look though. Here is what's interesting. This is the ranking of the top 10 countries using cryptocurrency most. We have the US at number 1, around 30 million people in the US. Ukraine, number 2, UK, number 3, India, number 4, Thailand, number 5, Russia, 6, France, 7, Netherlands, 8, Vietnam, 9, and Colombia, 10. Pretty interesting stuff there. As we continue to look at some of these juicy stats and details, we can also see this. Here are the 10 countries and cities where we see payments in crypto being used the most. Colombia, Bogota, Caracas, Venezuela, Seoul, South Korea, Paris, France, Athens, Greece, Bangkok, Thailand, Berlin, Germany, Madrid, Spain, Vienna, Austria, and Amsterdam, the Netherlands. It's really interesting to see when you compare these two. You look at the full list of the top 10 countries using crypto, and you look at the list of the cities where it's easiest to spin crypto, and you see there's a pretty big disconnect. A lot of the countries on here don't even have any city in the top 10 for acceptance, so that right there's another gap that needs to be filled. All of this, of course, will happen. We'll continue to watch that, but it's really fascinating just how big an impact it is having on the world stage already, and how much bigger that can be. Also, take a look at this number of Bitcoin ATMs across the US. 33,000 machines. Canada has 2,458. So the US number 1 in most of these metrics here. 27 million compared to India's 100 million in terms of the active people using. Now let's go and take a look. 44 million is the population of Ukraine, so that puts the stat even more into perspective. Ukraine, one of the only countries on this list that is not necessarily considered top of the economic chain of countries, I guess, if you want to call it. That's a silly name. But here, as we look at this, we can also see Tornado Cash developer, his arrest is starting to spark outrage. We are seeing major protests about this, and there are some protests where it's like, oh, come on, guys. That's not even really something you need to protest about. There are some protests that okay, yeah, that makes sense. This is one of the ones where I say, yes, it makes sense. They're being peaceful about it. They're being respectful, which I think is important when you're protesting, unless it's maybe against a tyrannical government that is undeniably tyrannical. At that point, maybe you can use a little bit higher measures. You may need to, or else those governments will use those measures against you, what you want to avoid. But short of that, I think this is the way to go about things. They're saying free Alex Pertsev. It's pretty cool to have this big of an audience forming for him and sticking up for cryptocurrency freedom. I happen to like that very much. But as we continue to scroll down and see what this story entails, it gets kind of crazy. You start to realize that a lot of people are rightfully upset. Alex is just a developer, says this quote. They should not be going after him. They should be going after the true criminals, said a protester and Web3 developer Naomi. And so this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, think about it. Is it really fair to blame this guy for what people decided to use his platform for? I don't think so. If North Korea had never decided to use Tornado Cash to launder money, then he probably would have never been arrested. So it doesn't seem like really a fair scale that we're operating on here. And it is absolutely a little bit silly to have him be arrested and have the people who are actually the ones that committed the crimes, they're still at large. Now you can argue, okay, I guess you can't arrest people in North Korea, right? Because how would you do that unless you do a full-scale invasion, which, I mean, I guess maybe is on the table for some countries. We'll have to see. I don't think that's going to happen, though. It would probably not be, and almost certainly would not be worth causing an entire world stage scale horrendous type activity that could lead to a all-out conflict. Not worth it. But can steps be taken in terms of cybersecurity and in terms of going on the offensive against North Korea as well? Yes, steps like that can be taken, and I think they certainly will be taken. But back to this story here. This guy, just imagine, that's like saying, okay, well, the US government's responsible for the dollar. Do people who are bad guys use the dollar for things? Yeah, of course. Okay, so I guess we need to arrest everyone in Congress. Let's arrest everyone in the Senate. Yeah, that's right. Every single senator will be behind bars in prison for their role in bad guys using the dollar. Come on, I mean, he needs to be freed. It's true. What are you going to do? Keep him in prison for years? I mean, for goodness sakes, this is just pretty ridiculous that he's even still in prison now. What did he do that was illegal? You can't cite a single law that he broke. All you're doing is just saying, okay, he created something. And now there could technically be a deal in place. Maybe this guy's actually in some cabin somewhere being hidden by the government, and he really had some sort of deal just to try to de-incentivize people from doing something like this in the future. That doesn't seem likely, though. That is just like a crazy potential conspiracy theory type thing that I have seen circulating on some circles of the internet. Could it be true? I mean, it's possible. I would put that at not probable, though. It does seem like they actually are using the arm of the law to go after someone who did not actually commit any crimes, rather just simply made something in the cryptocurrency space. That just de-incentivizes people to actually innovate, not necessarily innovate. It's a bad thing. It's the worst thing that we can have is the government meddling in cryptocurrency to too high of a level. FTX's money isn't insured as well, FDIC says. This one's interesting if you are using FTX. Now, I personally do not use FTX. I do not think it's the best one, but it does have some features that are better than other platforms. So it makes sense why a lot of people want to use it. Sam Bankman-Fried, I think, is someone who does do a lot of good things, but also does some things that I consider misguided, a little bit strange. But anyway, Sam Bankman-Fried is now under investigation to some degree, I believe. And now a lot of that's private, but at the very least, he's being called out by the FDIC, by the government. And that is after one of the people who worked for FTX, one of the people who worked for him, came out and apparently falsely said that the FDIC was in some way insuring investments. So pretty weird to see that. Brett Harrison, he tweeted this out per the FDIC's instruction. I deleted the tweet. The tweet was written in response to the question raised on Twitter regarding whether district USD deposits from employers were held in insured banks. We really didn't mean to mislead anyone. We didn't suggest the FTX itself or US itself or the crypto non-fiat assets benefit from the FDIC insurance. I hope that provides clarity on the intentions that we had. Happy to work directly with FDIC on these important topics. And so I think, there we go, he said it, but at the same time, it's pretty obvious what he was doing. I mean, yeah, he wanted people to think that there was some amount of FDIC insurance associated with that. Now, let me go ahead and find the exact quote here of what he said. Here it is. Direct deposits from employers to FTX US are stored in individually FDIC insured bank accounts in the user's names. Now, why would you even publicly say that unless you're trying to imply there was some amount of additional safety to customers of FTX, and there's not. And I think that's especially bad because we do want there to be additional safety that's put in place to some degree in terms of insurance, but maybe that could be done in a more private sector type way than through the government. Regardless, this still kind of muddies the water a bit. He shouldn't have said that. It wasn't Sam Bankman-Fried himself, but I think this is what Sam said. Clear communication is really important. FTX does not have FDIC insurance, and we never said on the website, banks we work with do. We never meant otherwise, and apologize if anyone misinterpreted it. So, they're apologizing. They're saying that. And, we'll accept that. It's not the end of the world. They just simply made a bit of an oopsie there and are now being called out, which is interesting. Take a look at this. Bitcoin down 11%, 12% on the 7-day period. Ethereum down 18%. By the way, I took a little bit of profits on Ethereum at the top. Then we saw USD coin, BNB up. BNB is up. Actually, on the day, believe it or not, 5%, which is kind of surprising, but down still 6% on the week. BNB actually holding a little bit stronger than the rest because of a lot of its use case nuggets. People using it for cryptocurrency, small ones, market cap wise. That is why it's still continuing to do well in terms of holding stronger than some of the other ones at this current point in time. Cardano down 20%, Dogecoin down 14%, so not as bad as Cardano or Solana, which is also down around 20% as well. So a pretty bad week in the market after we did start to see some resurgence. Now, does this open the door for crypto to fall even further? It absolutely does, and we have to be honest about that. So you have to be additionally careful because of this recent downturn that we could see even more downturn, because this is now starting to align with some of the theories that we may see a lower BTC price than originally expected. So I'll continue to keep you updated on that. I'm Matt Wallace. This is Final Stand, and I will see you in the next video.